Welcome to the Small Biz 101 podcast, a show for big dreamers who want to start or grow their small businesses. And now, your host, long-term small business owner and strategic business coach, Connie Weitzel.
Hello, and thank you for joining me for this fourth episode of the Small Biz 101 podcast, the show that provides all you need to know to start or grow your small business. I am thrilled to have our guest on today's episode of Small Biz 101, Ed Molitor. Ed is the founder of the Molitor Group, which is an executive coaching and leadership development organization that is, by the way, catching the Chicagoland world by storm after an event that Ed just led a few days ago, and I'm hoping he'll talk about a bit on this show. The reason I've asked Ed to be here for this episode and at this time is because in the previous episodes, I've talked about how important it is to know you, to know your motivations, your strengths, your skills, your passions, your interests, your vision for success. Doing that entire self-assessment that we talked about in the first episode before deciding on what type of small business you'd like to begin. And then in the last episode, we talked about different resources and methods for exploring and finding your ideal business. Now, Ed Molitor, who is one of my business coaching clients and a longtime friend through my husband, to me, Ed epitomizes this process of putting all of those elements that I just spoke of to create the business of his dreams. I've asked Ed to join us to discuss his experiences, the steps he's followed, what he himself considered in deciding on his own small, but not for long, business, the Molitor Group. As the Molitor Group is still in the startup phases, I'm actually hoping that Ed will join us in future episodes to discuss his progress along the way with his new business and share with us many of his successes and challenges. Ed, I'd like to welcome you here to the show, and I'm so happy to have you here with us.
Well, thanks for having me, Connie. I'm happy to be here.
Tell me, if you would, let's just start out. I just said a little bit about your company. If you would, just tell us more about the Molitor Group and what it is that you do.
As you mentioned, Connie, the Molitor Group is an executive coaching and leadership development organization. In what we do, for instance, this week in Chicago, we had a leadership skills camp. Why leadership skills camp? Because our brand is the athletics of business, which was born out of my experience as a college basketball coach, a college athlete, being in the business world. What the athletics of business is, it's a leadership mindset that the leadership skills, traits, and behaviors that you develop and that you build and grow in athletics are not only applicable in the business world, they're key to your success. So that in a nutshell is what we do. So we do not only executive coaching, we'll do what we call power hours. We'll do customized workshops, programs, a half day, full day. We'll do keynote speaking, all things of that nature.
You mentioned the event that you led on Friday, and I'm curious about the people who attended.
Our audience the other day was, for instance, we had a Comcast Business Enterprise Leadership Team. So we had a director, a senior director, and 8 managers there. We had a couple agency owners from Allstate. We had a regional director for Guaranteed Rate, which is the 4th largest mortgage company in the country. We also had a managing broker from Coldwell Banker in the city who runs one of the biggest offices in the city of Chicago in Lincoln Park. We had some mid-sized business owners. We had some financial consultants. As you can see, we're all in the same business in my mind. We're all in the people business. So whether you're managing people, whether you're selling to people, who's who we are going after.
I'd just like to share with the listener that this was Ed's first major event with the Molitor Group that he put together on his own. And I think for people who are starting their own small business, how did you get such an impressive audience to this first event that you're holding?
The way we went about doing things was grassroots. We went a little bit of old school. We did the social media, which we are learning as we go. We did the typical marketing that you're supposed to do, but I just flat out reached out to the contacts that I have and the people that I know and networked with them. We're excited about building on this event and the success we had. The feedback we've had has been tremendous, but this time around, I just took the gloves off and went back grassroots and picked up the phone and called people. And honestly, I met with as many people as I possibly could. I find that when you're face to face, you get much better vibe and feedback on whether or not it was worth your time, whether it's not it's worth your time to keep pursuing it. We had some pretty good success that way.
I saw when you posted some pictures and some information after the event on Facebook, I noticed that you had more people express an interest in your work after that, which I thought was phenomenal.
We did. That's textbook, and that's what everybody tells you is going to happen. And what I'm excited about is taking the video from the event, editing it up, putting out some social media, some clips for people to see. I think the video can answer some questions. I mean, we live in a time of a data dump right now, and I think the more simple and succinct and clear you can make the message, and what better way to get the message across and actually bring people in the room that couldn't be there.
And another thing I just want to emphasize, you said you did it grassroots. You went out and you spoke to individuals. You called them. I think so often people have started becoming very reliant on technology and sending emails or text or interacting through social media like Facebook messengering. But I'd just like to emphasize for anyone who's starting up a small business, how what Ed did is absolutely key. Whether you're doing a workshop, whether you're doing one-on-one work, whatever it is, you really need to make those contacts just like Ed did. And I know, Ed, you were pounding the pavement. You were talking on the phone. You were meeting with people, right?
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of coffee, a lot of lunch, a lot of lunches. Hey, can I just get 10 minutes? And the first thing I did, instead of just trying to push it on them and sell it on them and say, hey, and convince them that what we're doing is phenomenal. I mean, I already know what we're doing is phenomenal. I already believe in what we're doing, but I truly want to get engaged with folks. And there's a lot of people that I haven't talked to in quite a while, and you'll be shocked at where the leads come from, and you'll be shocked at the people that really buy in. And don't think, whatever you do, don't think you have it all figured out. Go make the mistakes. Go rekindle some of the flames, if you will. And the people that you think would be the least interested, reach out to them, because you'll be shocked at what you find out.
I so agree with that. When I first started my business, my coaching practice 5 years ago, I remember I sent out an email announcing the business to pretty much everyone that I knew and asking if they needed help or if they knew of somebody who needed this kind of business coaching help, would they put me in touch? And my first client was a guy that my husband went to college with. Not to really age him, but 35 years ago. And just like you said, people, you can never predict where your business is going to come from. Yeah, I think you really have to do what you're saying.
Yeah, and you can't predict, but here's the other thing. One of the challenges and one of the harder things of starting your own business is you're going to see the true colors of some people you thought would absolutely buy in and be on board and have your back. And they don't. And it's okay. You can't take it personal. Yep. You just got to keep plugging away and moving forward. You don't have time to sit there and be like, hey, man, I don't get it. Why? I thought if anybody would really be all about this and want to help me and would want to put it out there with me, why aren't they doing it? That's their party. That's their issue. That's not yours. You just got to keep doing what works.
Related to that too, just like what you said earlier. And then you get the people in who are the ones that you least expect. It's just, it's interesting. But the point is that we need to get out there. We need to be having interactions with people and letting them know what we're doing and how we can help them. Getting into what I spoke about a bit in the introduction, as you know, and as I've mentioned in that introduction, so far in this series that I'm running on this podcast, I've had a couple of elements that we've discussed so far. One of them being how important it is to do a self-assessment, to really know yourself before you decide on whatever business you're going to start. I'd like to ask you, When you were going through the process of figuring out what kind of business you wanted to start, tell me about that self-assessment process for you. How did, considering your skills and knowledge that you've developed, your strengths, how did that play a part in your decision to create the Molitor Group?
The Athletics of Business brand really stems from a company that I was going to start about 10, 11 years ago when I got back into coaching for about the third time. I'm not sure which. But that was Athletes for Athletes, and that was teaching life skills to athletes from the ages of 8 to 22. And I've always believed two things. I've always believed athletics is a microcosm of life. And then my point of reference just happens to be basketball. Okay, make it whatever sport you want or whatever walk of life you want. But I always believed basketball was a frame of mind game. So with that being the case, then life and business must be a frame of mind game as well. And I always thought there was a need for that. And when I first got out of coaching way back in 1998 and went into the mortgage business, I left what I call my why. I left my why behind, and I just took what I thought was a job. I didn't realize that my why, which is, to maximize, to make a positive difference in the lives of others so they can unleash their greatness. I didn't realize that I could do that in the mortgage industry, just like I did that with young men, coaching college basketball. And to me, that sort of evolved over time. And when I finally decided to launch this, I needed to really realize where I was going with this thought and where, how do you, because it's a trick. It's a trick to go into certain types of industries and certain types of organizations and tell people who are very, very successful that, you know what, you're kind of, I would never say this, but you can be better. And you can be better by controlling your mindset and managing your thought processes. And you can be better by adding more value to other people's lives as they're worried about just focusing on your metrics and your quotas and your numbers. Instead of managing, you can lead, and instead of managing, you can inspire. Managing, you're getting people to do things that they don't want to do. Inspiring, you're getting people to do things that they never thought they could do. So I was trying to put that all together. And I took a step back and tried to think about what I was good at. And I think I'm pretty decent at networking. I think I'm an okay, I think I'm an okay communicator. I think I'm good at follow-up. I'm very passionate about that. I'm very passionate about helping others. And I have somewhat of a sense of business. I've been around a little bit. And I'm a pretty motivated individual. I think life's short. I think you got to take each day for what it is and make the most of it. And I thought there was a space in the marketplace for this, and I decided to take that leap and went and got certified as an executive coach. But that wasn't just enough. I want to add as much value as I can to as many people as I can. Thus, I got into the leadership training and the leadership program and the customization of it. It's one of the reasons I didn't pigeonhole myself into one industry, which has made things a little bit more complicated, a little bit more difficult. It's different waters to navigate, but they're all waters that I'm familiar with. So every day is a learning experience, but really taking a self-assessment. The biggest thing for me was just be brutally honest with yourself in the sense that it's okay to compliment yourself. It's, you can beat yourself all you want, but you better find the positives too, and you better build on those. And the biggest thing that I have done that has helped me grow exponentially is I've expanded my comfort zone, but tried to work inside my strength zone.
One thing that I probably should have mentioned early on, because when I talk about this self-analysis in the first episode, I mentioned that it's important to go through the various roles that you've had throughout your life roles, your jobs, that kind of thing, and take from there the skills and strengths that you'd like to bring forward into your next venture, whatever it is or your next business, whatever that might be. And so Ed, as he mentioned, was a college basketball coach for a number of years, right, Ed? How many years did you do that?
Gosh, 4. So it was over 10. That I know.
And I met you, Ed and my husband coached together for Lewis University in Romeoville, Illinois. How long ago was that?
Now,
see,
you had to go there, didn't you? That would have been, it was actually 1992 when I accepted the greatest coaching position ever as a grad assistant, making a resounding $3,500 a year, and just just being driven into the ground by a hard driving boss. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I was with Jim from 92 to 96.
So Ed was in college coaching for quite a while, and you moved up through the coaching ranks after Lewis, obviously. Tell us a little bit more about where you went.
After Lewis, I left in 1996 and went to Texas A&M for 2 years, and that was our first year in the Big 12. And was there for 2, and unfortunately our head coach got reassigned. And at that age, I was 28 years old. I had gone from living across the street from Wrigley Field while working at Lewis to living in College Station, Texas, which I loved. I love the state of Texas to this day. I love visiting. I love the people, love the food. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just know it was a hard 2 years. I knew I missed running along the lake in Chicago. I knew there was a lot more out there, and I had a lot of other interests besides just coaching. I grew up a coach's son, but I also had a mom who was a professional, and there was just something that gnawing at me that I wanted to try something else. So I went into the mortgage business, but then being the young, immature, arrogant person that we can be, I went back into coaching and got back out, went back in, and got back out. So I was in the mortgage business, and I've done quite a bit of public speaking. I did that for a living for a while. In the last 6 years, I've worked in the military recruiting industry, placing former exiting retired military jobs throughout the country. In the last 3 years, I've served as a vice president of operations for the organization that I've been with.
In thinking about those different roles that you've had, being a basketball coach, being in the mortgage business, being in the military recruiting business, one thing that I talked about with the listener in the first couple of episodes was taking from those roles what you wanted to carry forward. And you did speak about earlier when you were talking about specifically college coaching, some of the things that you were good at and bringing that into your new business. And I'd add quite a few to those. I mean, you're so good at motivating people. If you can motivate players, youngsters, 18 to 20-year-olds to accomplish these plays and do really well and be motivated and teamwork, all of that, I can see how those skills carry over along with the ones that you've already mentioned. And then you just said that public speaking is something that you did quite a bit of, how helpful that is now in your new business. Can you just go a little bit deeper into that, what you're taking, maybe out of the military recruiting? You didn't really talk about what you're taking from that into your new business, or a little bit more about, from your business experience being in the mortgage business. What types of things did you want to bring into the Molitor group?
From the recruiting business, it was a pure business standpoint. I mean, the way we operated was very, either you worked your lips off or you weren't going to survive, or you weren't going to be successful. But truth be told, the relationships and working with people and selling their core intangibles to employers where, they might not have the exact skill set they're looking for, but they have enough and they can leverage the core intangibles, the work ethic, the integrity, the loyalty, the communication, the self-discipline, the self-motivation. And they can leverage those into not just coming in and contributing, but to being a leader and to being someone that brings energy every day and kind of setting the bar for the rest of what I dealt with in the recruiting was mainly field service engineers, field service technicians. So it was people that had to have a lot of flexibility, had to be on call a lot, had to travel quite a bit. You can make some really good money. You also had to balance the really good money with quality of life. And what I loved with the military, if I had $1 for every candidate that said, thank you, you guys changed my life and my family's life by helping me find this job, to me, that was better than any paycheck I ever received. And some of the conversations that we had, and you know what, you saw some people that really, really were struggling. You really did, and you learned to appreciate, and you heard some stories. And in that industry, like all industries, there's a lot of dirtbags. There's a lot of people that don't really care about the candidate. I wouldn't trade the long conversations getting to know the candidates that I had for anything. Just the stories I heard about family, about their experiences overseas when they were deployed, about places they've seen in the world, about their background and why they first went into the military. It was pretty phenomenal. And one of the huge lessons that coaching college basketball, doing the military recruiting taught me, and in the mortgage business too, but you'll understand when I say this, is everybody has a story. And one of the things that I heard a long time ago was don't make people feel important, know that they are important. And that's what I've tried to really carry over into the Molitor group.
You can really hear that in your voice and hear that in your message. And I just know that to be true from knowing you all of these years. So now you have control over how you use those skills and those strengths and developing those relationships under your own control, not somebody else's. Doesn't that feel good?
Well, it feels great. And truth be told, I mean, we all have lids. Okay, we all have lids on our growth. And to be able to, control where our lid is at and how high we can push that lid is awesome, because sometimes what happens, I may get this saying wrong, but you better have a plan, because if not, you're going to fall into someone else's plan, and guess what they have planned for you? Not much. When you're running by someone else's rules and their life, and all of a sudden, whether it be their personal life, whether it be their integrity level, whatever, and that controls your lid, that's when it was time for me to evaluate. That's when you have to leave a legacy for your children. And at some stage of the game, you start talking about the resume virtues versus the eulogy virtues. And that's what's really cool about starting your own business, regardless of the size of it.
Speak into that a little bit more. What do you mean when you say resume virtues and eulogy virtues?
Well, resume virtues are power, wealth, and fame. Okay, what's your job title? How many certifications have you had? What's your education? How many degrees do you have? What is your skill sets and what have you? Then you start talking about your eulogy virtues, and it's the things that really matter. What's your character level? What difference have you made in other people's lives? What's your legacy? What kind of family person are you? What kind of friend are you? You start talking about that. And Stephen Covey said, if you really want to define success, envision your funeral experience, and there's your definition. And trust me, and as I say this, and I was talking about this at the event on Friday, I'm not a touchy-feely person, which you can attest to by any stretch of the imagination, but I think there's, I am absolutely a type A personality, but I think there's something very real about putting things in perspective. And I'm a little bit older to have children the age I do. I'm 46. I have a 4-year-old Maddie, a 2-year-old EJ, and they really help me keep things in perspective when you start talking about the eulogy virtues and you start talking about legacy and you start talking about what kind of difference you want to make and what type of lessons you want to pay forward with. So those are the things that I don't want to be that guy that had all the toys and bells and whistles and at the end says, God, I wish I would have enjoyed them. I want to have all that, but I want to have the proper perspective and I want to enjoy it. And that's what's great about starting your own business is if you really buy into it and you really believe in your why and you really are honest with your stuff, brutally honest, you are going to enjoy everything so much more because you know what you did to achieve it.
I just think that's phenomenal how you incorporate that into your work and then teach others to do the same thing, because so often we live in such a materialistic world that sometimes it's a little bit tough to remember what truly is important. So I love that you share that in your work. During your last response, you were talking about your definition for success and how important that is. And one thing that I've talked about in the first episode in doing that self-assessment is how everyone has their own individual and different vision for success in their lives. So I'm just curious, you have gotten into it a little bit when you were talking about the eulogy virtues, but can you tell us a little bit more about your vision for success and what you were thinking regarding that when you were starting your company?
Where I envision the Molitor Group going is I'd like to make it a global organization. Okay, we're going to make it a global organization, but it's going to be something where through our success, we just keep building and growing and networking. But I want it to be such a way where the executive coaching clients, the leadership development and training programs, and the clients I have in general allow me to show my kids the world. I want them to see dad grow a business. I want to see mom and dad grow to see mom and dad build a business in such a way it's global. The people that work for the organization, lives are better for doing so. And I want them to walk away when they graduate from college, if they choose to go to college, when they graduate from college, to have seen the world, to have an idea of what they want to do with their life, where they want to do it, and then be able to make an educated decision and have a passion and a dream that's theirs. I want them to have the vision that's theirs, not mom and dad's, not cousins, not aunts and uncles, not friends. I want them to have their own mind and their own passion, their own dream, and I want them to have already felt and touched and seen the world. And that's where the Molitor Group is going. That, to me, in terms of true definitions of success, I always kind of hang my hat on John Wooden's. Success is a peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction and knowing you did your best to become the best you're capable of becoming. And then you have someone like John Maxwell who keeps things so eloquently simple, and he says he's changed his over the years, and his most recent one, if I'm correct, is success is when the people that know you the best respect you the most.
Yeah, how simple. And I think it's so funny, too, that you brought up John Wooden's quote, a famous basketball coach, and how that applies now into our lives personally and professionally. He was a pretty profound guy.
He was. And you know what I love about John Wooden? I was talking about John Wooden, Coach Wooden. I can't call him John Wooden. Coach Wooden. I was talking about Coach Wooden at the event the other day, and we were talking about positive energy, and we were talking about enthusiasm. And I was trying to explain that positive energy and enthusiasm doesn't mean it's a rah-rah, pound your chest, any of this fake stuff you see people selling all the time now. You can look in someone's eye and you can see if they have positive energy. You can have a conversation with someone in a very soft, steady tone, and you can know if that person is truly enthusiastic about what they're engaged in. And to me, that's what was awesome about. I wish I could have the demeanor that Coach wouldn't have. I wish I could have the passion for poetry and the ability to memorize stuff like he did. That's one of the things about him that I really... So that's why his definition of success to me is one of the best ones that are out there.
Another thing I just wanted to touch on when you were speaking of your vision is you said mom and dad. And so your wife, Nancy, I know is integral to your business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Nancy, unbelievable human being, obviously.
Yes.
Definitely my better half. Nancy was with Sprint. She started with Nextels with Sprint for 15 plus years, and she was let go. She was in sales. She was account executive. Started in customer service, I believe. She was let go when she was 5 months pregnant with our second child, with EJ. I think it's one of the happiest days of her life. I'm just kidding. But truth be told, it gave her an opportunity to take a step back and think about what she wanted to do, because she could have gone back once the mass layoff was done and they hired people back. She could have gone back, but she took a job with Comcast Business as an account manager. She's been with them, I think it's coming up on two years, something like that. And she's at the age now, and our kids are at the age now where I want her to have the opportunity to do what she's comfortable doing and do what she wants to do. Her mind never stops working. She's an entrepreneur herself. If she would just take that next step, she's had some phenomenal ideas. She really has. If she could just pursue some of those, but I want her to have the time to do so. I mean, she is so integral in our business. I mean, this event we just had on Friday would not have happened without her in a huge way. I mean, she took the day off and to be at the event, to work the event. All the prep work leading up to it. She takes our social media by the horns. I want her to be, if she wants to work a half day for the Molitor Group and go work at the kids' school when they get older, then do whatever she wants to do. I want her to be able to do. That's the beauty of owning your own business. You in a way, I mean, you somewhat control your own destiny. Obviously, you have to deal with market trends and a very moody marketplace, if you will. There's a lot that goes into it, but I want to be able to provide her the opportunity to make a decision what she wants to do with her time and her day. And I know to her it means a lot being with the kids as much as she possibly can. That's another factor that went into launching this business, because I was very happy with the recruiting. I was very comfortable, but I also felt like my hands were tied, and I felt like my head was banging against my lid of where I was going.
I love the way you're talking about supporting Nancy as she moves forward to live her vision for success. There's that, and then you also talk about you and her working together and you're creating such a great role model. You're both great role models for your children and growing up.
Well, I appreciate that. I just try to follow her lead, Connie.
Yes, happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, that's pretty much, and it's better that you said that than I did.
Okay, all right. So getting back to the topic at hand, I so appreciate you taking this time and talking about how your own self-assessment of your skills, your knowledge, your passions, your why that you described, your vision for success so beautifully flows into this business that you have. So I'd like to shift before we end, just for a couple of minutes, to talk about the second thing that I talked about is with regard to finding your ideal business is doing research into types of businesses and analyzing, researching the field that we're interested in going into before making the decision. I'm curious, in your journey, did you do that? Did you take time to research and explore the leadership development, executive coaching field before deciding on this business?
I did, and here's what happened at first. I confused myself. It's not my space in the marketplace is unique, and I'm trying to make it even more unique. People who had come from an athletic background and gone into coaching before did some of the cheesy stuff. Call me coach, whistle around the neck, go speak at real estate offices and scream at them, do this, do this, do this. Others tried to act like they had all the answers, you know. And what I basically did is I just started really latching on to people from both sides that I believe had kind of model a little bit of what I'm going, gravitating towards. I started reading authors like John Gordon, listening to his talks, Todd Herman. But then I also still went back to the Jim Rohn, the Napoleon Hill material, the John Maxwell's, the Anthony Robbins. I tried to pull from everybody that I felt was authentic, was integrous, was real. My biggest challenge for me is to not be cheesy, to not try to be over the top, but yet still be passionate about it, to still get caught up in the moment where people can be like, holy crap, he's for real. And then there's still the business side of it. So I researched the industry, but it is such a saturated marketplace, and there's so many hacks that are trying to change the marketplace so they can sell things. I have an issue with those people. Okay, I call me whatever you want. I just want to be successful because I'm providing people material. Hey, this isn't my material. I didn't write it. What's mine is how I put it together and how I present it and how I package it and how I brand it. That's what's mine. You think about people that go work at Blackbird Restaurant in Chicago, they're taking recipes they might have learned somewhere else, say when they spend a season out in Nantucket on the island at Straight Warp, and they're going to make that recipe a little bit different, a little bit better, put their own touch on it and their own brand on it. That's what you do in your own space in whatever marketplace you're in.
Ed, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Connie. It was a blast. I always enjoy our time together.
For anyone who is interested in learning more about Ed's business, the Molitor Group, his website is themolitorgroup.com. I will have that link in the show notes for the episode, as well as Ed's contact information and information about any other resources that we've talked about during the episode. You can find those all at smallbiz101podcast.com. Thank you for listening, and hope to have you back here again.
Thank you for listening to the Small Biz 101 podcast with your host, Connie Weitzel. For more information, visit smallbiz101podcast.com.